Hi friends and welcome to another video. My name is Julie if you're new here and this is another bookmas video. And today I wanted to talk to you about the most disappointing books that I read in 2025. You know, there are some books that you just really look forward when going into a new year, or just because you have heard so much about them and you have high expectations, and then you read them and they just aren't what you expected. And there were 3 books this year that were that for me, so I'm going to tell you about it. I have 2 disclaimers. One, I hope you really don't hear any of the background noise that is going on in front of my building, because there's some Christmas music playing outside, which is really nice to be honest, but I still hope you can't hear it in the video. And the second one is that if you really love any of these books, then that is totally valid and I don't want to take away from that. So please, if you're not in the mood to hear about that or hear me talking negatively about a book that you really like, then just maybe don't listen to this, because I am going to do a bit of ranting. The first book that I was really disappointed by this year was Flawless by Elsie Silver. And this is a book that I had heard a lot about before reading it. I had heard so many good things about Elsie Silver as an author and about this book in particular. The whole series, to be honest, I just heard great things about. I knew that this was a really beloved author and I thought, I'm just going to give it a go. And the whole description of the book kind of made me a bit wary, I would say. It just didn't sound like there was going to be a lot of depth, but sometimes that's just what you need and you can't always really tell from the description. So I just went into it without knowing that much about the book. Yeah, there were a lot of things in this book that I had some sort of problem with. I just didn't really think that the whole setup was that believable, and that is just really my personal taste. But I didn't like, for example, the way that the MMC called the FMC princess all the time, and that he didn't really take her that seriously in her profession. And I just think this whole thing about them being in this professional relationship and then this whole narrative of this woman having this really great career and then just being described as a city girl and then just her giving all of that up and being so invested in this small town and like basically deciding that she wants to stay there at the end. I don't think that's really a spoiler. Just doesn't sit right with me. I just didn't think that the chemistry between the 2 main characters was really there for me as well, and I didn't feel like they connected a lot about anything other than physical stuff. So yeah, I get that there was attraction, but I don't think that there was a lot to build a relationship on. And I think that is really what makes a romance for me, if I see the 2 characters really being together or not. And here I just didn't really see it. Also because the male main character had a lot of communication issues and he kind of worked on it towards the end. But I didn't see there being that much progress that I could really say like, yeah, these 2 should really be together. And then also the main conflict was really weird to me and I just didn't feel like it was the right book for me. Let's just put it like that. And another thing that is just really me is that I don't enjoy there being so many explicit scenes in romance books, or at least not having them without a real purpose. And here it just felt like there was a lot of that, and that is totally fine if you like it. I just don't really vibe with that as much, so it just wasn't for me. And I also just didn't feel like there was really anything in this book that made me invested in their relationship, or that I said like, oh, I really want them to overcome this. I just didn't connect with the conflict as well, because it just seemed so made up and just so much of it was this weird toxic masculinity and really just something that you should figure out with a therapist rather than a romance, in my opinion. So that's why I didn't enjoy the book at all. And why I was so disappointed, because I heard so many great things about this again. And it wasn't like the worst book ever, but I just had high expectations and then I was really let down. The next book that really disappointed me this year was The Ragpicker King by Cassandra Clare. And please don't come at me now, but I really enjoyed the first book in the series. And I don't know what it was. I think I even have a reading blog on this book. And I just didn't feel like anything really happened in this book. There was just so much filler and it was so slow that I just took so long to finish it, and I just didn't feel hooked by the storyline. I wanted to skip, I would say, around 50% of the book, and to be honest, probably wouldn't have hurt if I did. And the only part where I thought like this is going somewhere was the end of the book. And that now makes me think that I want to keep reading, but I don't know if I should. Because even with the first book, I thought it was really slow paced. But I did enjoy that, and I did enjoy the characters a lot and their relationship, but I just didn't feel like there was a lot of development in the second part of the story, or that we were really going somewhere. For example, if you compare it to Fourth Wing, where after the first book we get a whole new storyline that is opened up for us, and then we also get to see more of the whole continent and the whole like world that this story is set in. And I think this is what's now going to happen with the third book of the series, but just in the second one I was really disappointed that we were just staying basically in the same place and still just having people plotting against each other and it not really going anywhere except for the end. And not to say that this was a bad book or anything, really it wasn't. But I just think that for at least 80% of the book, really not a lot happened. And then in the last 15% of the book, all of this shit is going down. And I just wish that the pacing would have been a bit different, or like the sections of the book would have been a little bit more equal. And also, if the book doesn't really develop plot-wise, I would have thought that we would get more in the direction of the relationships, but that also didn't really happen too much. We got some relationship development between two characters, but not in a way that really is satisfactory. And then we had two other characters that really didn't get any development at all, and I thought that was such a shame. And I don't know why, but this just really seemed like a filler book to me. And I think that could have really been done a lot more editing, because this was such a long book and it really didn't need to be. And then I think this was supposed to be a duology and now it's a trilogy. So maybe that is just why, because they just wanted there to be a third book. But I think that there could have been some editing done. That's all I'm saying. And then we have the third book that I was really disappointed by, and that was The Midnight Feast by Lucy Foley. And I was also really disappointed by this. This is a thriller book, and I thought the whole setup of the book just had so much potential. There was so much to go off of. The whole beginning of the book was so intriguing and I was hooked at the very start, but then it just fell so flat in the end. It just became such a cliche. There were so many things that are just really not surprising at all. And even the elements that I didn't think were things that I could see coming weren't interesting or anything that was really surprising still. And I think that's such a shame, because this had so much potential. The whole setting was great, the characters were interesting in the beginning, but then having it be such a cliche and there be no real twists. And I just wish that she would have gone with maybe even like a magical explanation or supernatural stuff happening, but the things that sounded like they maybe were were not, and it was really clear that they were not. And the whole way that the stories were told with the different character perspectives made it really easy to guess what was going to happen, because we just knew all of the perspectives and there was no room for us to guess. Oh, and we also got the different timelines. So we didn't just get the current timeline, but we also got the timeline of what was happening back in the day. So we also knew what was going on there, and that there was something that we had to pay attention to, and that was just really telling you as a reader what to expect and what was going to be the outcome in the end. Even if you didn't guess the conclusion, I think it was really clear where the story was headed, even though there was so much to go off of. We could have gone more into the whole capitalism side of the story. That was really interesting in the beginning. A lot of the pagan myths around the whole area that this was set on, the whole beliefs that the people had about this, but it was really also very early on made clear that this is not something that is really mystical or anything, but it is just man-made. And yeah, just a lot of points in the story that would have been really interesting if it hadn't been told to us as a reader that early on. And I think that is just the choice in storytelling that I couldn't get behind, and also made it a bit confusing for the readers as well, even though everything was really clear. I think the different perspectives and the different timelines made it really hard to follow when you were listening to it, as an audiobook at least. I don't know if it maybe is different if you're reading it. So yeah, that was just something that I also didn't really enjoy with this book. And with the thriller, in my opinion, that is one of the most important things, that the suspense is there from the beginning until the end, and that you can't guess what's happening, and that you as a reader are left in the dark as well for at least a good part of it. So yeah, these were the 3 books that I was really disappointed by this year, and I hope that you didn't read those, and I hope if you read them that you weren't as disappointed as I was. And again, these weren't bad books, they just really weren't for me. And if you had any books that you were disappointed in, let me know why and which ones they were. And if you have read any of the 3 books that I just talked about and you liked them or you didn't like them, let me know why. And I hope that I didn't hurt anyone's feelings with this. I know it can be hard to hear somebody talk about your favorite books like that. So yeah, I will see you in my next video. Bye!